Yo, it's Tommy Nutter with another studio video, and this is why you should use templates when you're producing music. Let's get started. What I want to talk to you about today is templates, specifically in DAWs, where it allows you to set up things that you have access to immediately. So you're looking at FL Studio, you can have things loaded in patterns already, you can have things loaded in the mixer already, you can have things loaded in your channel rack already, even if you're not going to use them. So think a template of drums that you always use in every beat, put them in there, saves you time next time looking for them and put them in. Studio One, which is the one I use, this I'm specifically going to show you my template. On here we've got a Vox buzz, a drums and bass buzz, and a band buzz. Why am I drums with my bass? Because I like mixing my bass to a certain level, bringing the drums in, correcting the level and getting it all working together before I even start on the other elements, unless I'm doing vocals first. So vocals, we got our own buzz, and there's this band buzz. Now band is every other instrument, effects, stuff like that. Sorry, not effects, effects are separate. And then down here I've got a mix buzz automation track, and what this does is I've got all my filters set up for everything that's on the mix buzz already, so that I can draw them out if I need to. And up top we've got everything set up for a 4-bar intro, then verse 1, verse 2. Now these are blocks of verses, not actual verses, so verse 1, part 1, part 2, and then we go to a hook, verse 3, verse 4, and then a pre-hook, hook, hook out, and then outro. That's your standard pop music structure, and I change it around as I need to, but just for sake of ease I like having it like this set up, because I know where I'm up to then. I get a scale of things better. Let's have a look at our mixer. There we go. Glorious, isn't it? We'll start from this end. As you can see, we've got the Vox, DMB buzz and the band buzzes all there at this end. If I was to bring something in, like a few channels of stems, I'd drag them in, and then I'd drag them into the folders. I'd pack the folders so that it aligns like this. I'll show you what I mean. So now you can see I've got my project organised into folders. So this is how it comes, this is how it happens, how it shows up. Vocal buzz, I've just got things that I regularly use for buzz processing on vocals. Makes sense really, even though they're not on straight away. I will end up using some of these at some point. I've got a 1-knob filter that I put on all my buzzes, because that's how I control my automation. It's really easy for putting some filtering effects in. I've got Kramer tape. Kramer tape is amazing for vocals. It flattens everything out but keeps the charm of it. And then I love putting a little bit of slap on as well. I'll turn that slap up to about 4%, and I'll bang this right up, and it just sucks all the harshness out of it, you know what I mean? It's lovely, bloody lovely. On our drums and bass buzz, we've got a spectrum meter, because I like checking that on its own, independent of the spectrum meter on the master buzz. We've got Kramer tape again, and I pretty much do the same process, but sometimes I leave it on feedback, and I just get that. What it is with drums is, if you put them through that tape machine and leave the feedback on, crank it right up, you give the drum, you don't give it space in terms of a reverb, but you give it space in terms of making it feel like it lives somewhere, not just out in the middle of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, it gives it a room to be in, gives it something to reflect off without being a big verby space. So I love that about it. And it also does the same thing as vocals, brings it all down, it ties it in. We've got, as I talk trash, this is more a production tool than anything. If I'm not liking how my drums are going, and I don't want to start my drums entirely from scratch, then I'll just whack them through this, add some saturation, Maybe I'll put some fuzz and some smooth on it, I'll dial it back and I'll widen the mix, and sometimes it can turn some saw drums into something really nice. So that's a little last chance thing on for when I'm mixing, but in production it's quite useful. We've got a 1 knob pumper. That's honestly, I put that on when I made this template, but I've still never used it. Not from it being in this template anyway. My idea of having that in was that I was going to use that in conjunction with the 1 knob filter, and I was just going to create a sense of build up in the pre-hooks with it. So it's an idea that I've just not executed yet, so I'll leave that there. We've also got a 1 knob filter on there because, like I said, I have it on every buzz, but I always use it there. The band buzz, we've got a spectrum meter on it as well, and this is really the saving grace of any mix. The Shep 73 is the best plugin that I've discovered in recent times, and really it's probably my favourite plugin right now. I wouldn't get rid of it for anything. We've also got a 1 knob filter in there, and we've also got the Waves Enigma stereo. Enigma's kind of like it's a little bit like Meta filter. It's a filter but with a flanger that's kind of 75% chorus as well, but you can dial it in for have different effects and different movements and different speeds. It's pretty good for things like where you just want to change the sound of something for one particular moment or a couple of bars. I've never found anything it's good on consistently all the way through the track. I like using Effectrix more for stuff like that. But next we've got Ozone Exciter. We're still in the band buzz, remember? So remember when I talked about the Shep CQ, the 73, and adding that saturation? Another way of doing that same thing but with a slightly crispier tone is using this Ozone Exciter. I'd say I'd use it more on the high end than I do on the low end, only because it's got such fine adjustment with that mix knob that when you're dealing with things like 5 to 10k and you don't want to be saturating those possible sibilances and harsh tones, then that mix knob is really a saving thing. You can dial it back and just have a little bit, but it accomplishes what you want, you know what I mean? And then finally on the band buzz we've got Rainworks Shred Spread. This is something that I only got recently. I'm still messing about with it really, but what I found that it does is if you use the shred option, it introduces a tone that fattens things up but not predominantly in the mid frequencies like something else would, and it doesn't fatten it up in the way of adding harshness either, and it doesn't add too much presence. It just kind of the way I can explain it is if you had something that was silver coated, this would add a layer of gold on top. Do you know what I mean by that? Like if something's already good but it just needs that little bit more, this gives it some sparkle without being too sparkly. It gives it some pizzazz without being too zazzy. It's just nice. And then we've got a spread button on there as well now. A spread button, it's kind of the same thing as binaural pan in Studio One, and the same thing as what's it called, that thing? I should know this because I use it all the time, but when I search for it I only type in pan. S360 panner. So this one, you can knock out the centre in this one and have a phantom centre and then spread it, but with the DX Shred Spread it doesn't do as much spreading. You can't get it that far. It doesn't really control the centre that much as well, but what it does do, it does consistently. So yeah, it's nice, like it says, it's intelligent, you know what I mean? And then those all feed into the mix buzz. We've got the effects buzz that also feeds into the effects buzz. The effects buzz, we've got things set up like an echo bar and a quarter ping pong. We've got an echo bar and a half ping pong. 1/8 H delay with ambient verb, quarter low verb. That's the lo-fi version of it. We've got the Manny Moroccan reverb. Started using that recently. I'm not over impressed with it, to be honest. I think that's going to be swapped out with something else in my template in the next couple of days, really. Abbey Road plate, that's an amazing plugin. We've got Reverb. We've got Room Reverb. This is a Studio One plugin that I really like, you know. It kind of acts the same way as Reverb does. It's a little drier than Reverb. It's a little less metallic than Reverb is, but nice nonetheless. And then we've got Kick Verb. This is Room Reverb, but with, oh sorry, I've already been on that, but basically the kick drum setting, bass drum inside setting. Shove that on your kick and you're gold. Crystallizer. This is good for adding in, say you've got a 4-bar section that runs all the way through your beat, and you come to the pre-chorus and it just needs a little bit of sparkle at the end before it drops back into the main beat, which will be double track for like fatness. This gives you that little sparkle, but it gives it in a way that it's kind of like a little arpeggio going on behind it. Like if the beat's your conversation, then this is just a thought that someone having. It's nice. Bass saturation, everybody loves a good old decapitator. I'll parallel process my bass with this and then I'll adjust up and down as I need to and blend it in with the original bass. For safe measures, I do dial this in, the low cut, sorry, but I also have an EQ set to that because I'm just not sure about it sometimes and I'd rather be safe. And then guitar rig. This is here not for guitars, but for certain types of saturation that I want to add into something, and none of this other stuff will do. Parallel compression with an SSL we've got going on, and we've got some parallel with a CLS76, and then we've got the effects buzz, which has, I don't know why, oh that's because I just showed you in it, but yeah, the effects buzz doesn't have anything on. Sometimes I'll EQ it if I've done a lot of low end effects, but I usually just leave it. And then the mix buzz, that's what everything runs into. We've got a standard SSL master buzz compressor, and we've got a J37 set to master in fat, tight and open for a start, and the noise level turned down. Then we've got some VCAs set up, which I use in the track that I showed you at the beginning, so you can use all these VCAs for automation. And we've got two different outs, and that is because if I add a reference track and I send it to ref and solo that means that I can have a reference track running out of this output, and I can also have my main coming out of this output. I can set it to different speakers if I want to, or I can set it to a headphone out, but it's just for checking against your own mix. It's a reference mix. So what we have on here is a spectrum meter for checking that mix, and we have one for matching it on the other side. We have a phase meter for if I'm using any live instruments or dodgy stuff. We have a WLM meter. This is not the one I use though. I use the WLM Plus. This one as a trim knob so that you can get to -14 throughout the whole of your song, and then if it's too loud you can just trim it back on the peak limiter. And I have my own setting on that for Spotify, and if you wonder why I'm clicking so much, it's because my mouse intermittently fails. ITSTOMMYNUTTER Spotify settings, so we do that on that. We do it to -16, short mid -32, true peak max -2 because I never mastered to -1. I don't know why people do that. And that's it. That's my sample that works for me for everything. All I gotta do if I want some instruments, pull contact over, my contact stuff. If I want Omnisphere, pull Omnisphere over, put Omnisphere stuff. You good? You know what I mean? It's bloody mouse again. Or maybe I want something from Waves. You know what I mean? Could be anything. We're doing all sorts. So that's my template, you know. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope I inspired you to have a template. The most important thing to take away from this is try and figure out what works for you and what your workflow is, and then build something that makes it easier for you. It's hard enough just living day by day in this generation, you know what I mean? The best thing you can do is treat yourself. Go and set yourself up a template. Even if you're in FL Studio, you can set yourself up a nice template. And if you need any help with setting up a template in Studio One, give me a shout. I'll gladly help you out, or I'll even send over mine if you want. So thanks for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. Leave a comment in the box below and tell me what you do to save time when you're producing or mixing music.